Hi everyone, Dr. Minikino back with our next to the last tutorial on making our donut. And in this tutorial, it's not going to be very long. We're going to work on creating our sprinkles. So I'm going to go through two different types of sprinkles, and I'm going to show you how to make various versions of that, and how you can change the colors and move individual sprinkles once you have them baked so you can edit them. So we're going to start by coming up here to an object, and the best one we can work with here is a capsule. So we're going to select a capsule and of course pull it off to the side because that would be a huge sprinkle. We need to change some of the segments here. I like to change the height segments to about 5 or so. And I'm going to change the cap segments to just about 10, not more than that. And then our radius segments, again, we want to make sure this is fairly round. They're going to be small, but 25 looks pretty good. So right now, we've got 100 millimeter tall by, 100 millimeter wide by 100 millimeter X and Y, and then 200 millimeters tall. So that's about 8 inches tall, almost, about 7.5 inches tall. So we're going to bring this down in size by leaving it constrained so we can keep the proportions the same as we shrink it. So we're going to take this down. I think we want to keep this right at about 5 for the X and the Y. And then we'll leave it at about 10 for the Z for right now. It's a little big. Maybe we'll go to 4 and make it a little bit smaller, and that'll give us a good little tiny one to start with. Okay, so now once we have this first little tiny sprinkle that we're going to work on, we can do a couple of things with it. We want to do the work on the sprinkle itself before we make multiple copies of it. That way we can actually, it's a lot easier to do it to one than to do it to a whole bunch of them. So sprinkles are not perfect. They're a little bit long sometimes, some are shorter, some are twisted a little bit. So in our first one here, we're going to try and keep our length the same, and we're going to unconstrain this, and we're going to make this, let's say 3 by 3, and we'll leave it 8 tall. So we zoom in, we can see it's a little bit skinnier now. Now, the next thing I want to do, remember I have these segments in here, is I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit this. So it's going to say bake it, and I'm going to say yes sir. So I want to zoom in on this, and then I want to get a straight on look. So I want to zoom in just on this object right here and get a straight on look to it, because I want to kind of grab just half of it and pull it up. So what I'm going to do is get my marquee. So over here to select marquee, and then right about here's a good place. I'm just going to grab this. It's going to highlight, and I'm just going to pull it up, and then I'm going to kind of bend it just a little bit and rotate it just a little bit. So it's not a perfectly square or straight, just a little bit different. Now another thing I can do at the same time that I have that like that is I could actually flatten this top down a little bit. I don't think I'm going to do it on this one, but you could do that. You could flatten it down a little. So now that we have it adjusted a little bit, we're going to go back into object mode. I'm going to zoom out. You can see that now that's a little crooked, so it looks more like a naturally made thing. So let's add some color to it. I think this first one we're going to do like a lightish blue. Not real dark. Maybe pull this over a little bit. There we go. That's a nice light blue. That'll look good. Our next thing, now that we have this highlighted, so don't forget to keep it selected, we're going to come up here to the Generate tab. Generate tab is up here in our toolbar. And we're going to add in an array grid. So when we do that, it's going to create a big grid, 5 by 5 by 5. So we want to see what our array grid looks like here. So we have 5 in the X, 5 in the Y, and 5 in the Z. We're going to leave the 5 in the X, but we're going to change the 5 in the Y to a 1 and the 5 in the Z to a 1. And then we're going to change the offset. So we're going to bring them closer together. We need to get them down to about 20. So they're kind of close together before we do any randomizing with it. Okay, so let's just change that to 20. And we're going to zoom in a little bit. So there's our 20 spacing, and we've got 5 of them. So you can see we're starting over here to build this little bit of a nested group. So our next step, again, we're going to go to Generate, and we're going to go down here to Randomize. And the Randomize will throw them all over the place, like it just did. And we need to bring them back together. So we're going to unconstrain, and we're going to bring the X. So they come together in the X. Let's bring them right to about 10. And then we'll take the Y all the way to 1. So they're, well, maybe not to 1, maybe to 10 also. Our Z we do want to bring down to 1. We want to bring our Z where they're all in the same plane. Because if they're not in the same plane, it makes it really hard for us to work with them. So the other thing that happens when you randomize these, initially one of them disappears, but as we go through the seeding process, you'll see that they do have all 5 of them there. So we're going to try and move these on top of our donut so they're visible. And it takes a little bit of work. You just got to go back and forth until you can get them where you want them. And if you notice, they're different sizes right now. So we're going to work on that sizing issue as well. And again, we're just kind of playing with the location of these until we get them right where we want them. Now, since they have been baked, and we're going to bake this group too, we can work with them independently when we bake the group. So there's this other item here called seed, and I'll show you what seed does. If we are at the 1000 seed, that's the basic one. So if we push it up a little bit, you see how they change position, and oh look, suddenly that 5th one appeared. So at 101 we get a different perspective. So there's all 5 of them again. We can get some different looks. We want to try and keep them relatively spaced apart. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and edit this group. And it's going to say convert the group. Yeah, I'm going to convert it. Now I have individual capsules. And if I click on the individual capsules, I can work just on that capsule. So I'm going to take this one, roll it flat, stick it back on top of the icing, maybe roll it down a little bit more, and a little bit more. Then I'm going to push it up in the air so it sticks out of the icing a little bit more. There, just like that. So now I have my sprinkle sitting right where I want it. Now you can see this sprinkle is bigger than the other one. So when I click on this sprinkle here, Let's find which one it is. Right there. Okay. If I click on that sprinkle, I can change the size on that sprinkle alone. So I can leave it constrained, bring it down to that 3 size, and that'll make it a little bit smaller. We're going to spin it around flat. We're going to try and move it where it's randomly placed on the icing. And again, most of this is going to be just playing with little movements on it. So you get the idea. And we have, right now we have 5 little sprinkles here. I'm actually going to try and work on this one a little bit to make it better. Make that one 3 as well. And now that one's sticking out of the icing better. The only one we have to bring down, I think, is this one. Or is it this one over here? That one. Okay. So I think that one needs to come down a little bit. And maybe this one here. Down just a little bit. Okay, so now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. I can quickly have 10 by just highlighting where it says randomized baked. Actually, before I do that, I want to make sure I name these. So I'm going to rename this as blue sprinkles, and they're baked. Oh, I left out the R. Blue sprinkles. Okay, now what I can do is just click on this, do a Control D. Now I end up with a whole other group, and I'm just going to rotate these around a little bit, and I'm going to change the color on them to, I think, green. And I can do that one more time, do a Control D, and rotate them around again. Oh, that didn't give me a second one there. So let's do a Control Z, and then a Control D. Now I have them. So I'm going to spin them a little bit more, and I'm going to make these, I think, more of a pinkish color. So now I have 3 sets of sprinkles, 3 different colors, and I can label each one so I know what they are. So I have blue, green, and pink sprinkles. And I can work on any individual sprinkle that I want. If you notice, I have one kind of floating out there right in the air. I think that's floating in the air. Yep. So I need to get that one back on the earth. And knowing that it's one of the blue sprinkles makes it kind of easy for me to figure out which one right there. So now I just need to pull that one down a little bit, maybe rotate it down. Get it where I want it. Okay. So now I'm going to add, rather than sprinkles, I'm going to add some little round spheres. So some little round balls. And that's another thing that sprinkles comes in. It comes in these little tiny balls. Now, I can also, by the way, do a Control D on any one of these. So if I click on the blue ones and I do a Control D, I can changed. I think I might be able to change it under texture transformation on the tiling. No, that's not going to change it. Thought I might be able to change the tiling on it. Okay. So what I was hoping I could do was to make another change for it, but I'm just going to do Control Z to get out of that second group because I don't need that second group. So let's take this one here and we'll just go ahead and delete it. That's that one. That's our new one. So we're just going to delete that group. Okay. So once they're baked, so don't forget that, once they're baked, you're not going to be able to make a lot of changes to them unless you go into edit mode. So I'm going to now go back over here to sphere. I'm going to select a sphere, zoom out a little bit, pull it over, and then again, we want to work on our segmenting. So we need our width segments to get up to about 25, our height segments to about 25. Remember, we're working at a smaller level, so it's not really that important. We need to bring this to about, let's say about 5. So it's not real big. That may even be too big, so let's make it maybe 4. And we're going to add a color to this one. So let's make this one red. Move our color all the way over there so we're almost perfectly red. And I think we'll bring it down a little bit. It needs to be less bright. There, that's better. Look, more of a sugary look. Okay. So now we're going to do that same thing with the sphere. So we're going to go into our generate and we're going to create an array grid. And we're going to have a 5 by 5 by 5 grid. So again, we need to change it to a 5 by 1 by 1. And we need to change the offset down to about 15. So here we are all set. We've got an array grid in our sphere. So our next step is to add our randomize feature. And again, we're going to have to bring this position down. So our our X, we're going to bring down to 10. Our Y, we're going to bring down to 10. And our Z, we're going to bring down to 1. That way, they're all kind of in the same place. We're going to move the seed up, I think, just to 101. So we can figure out where the 5th one is. There we are. And at this point, let's see where we are. I think we can go ahead and bake these so we can work on them independently and bring some of them back to the right sizes. So let's just go through. That's pretty good for size. That one's too small, so let's change this one to 3. And let's go to the next one. So we're trying to get these all relatively the same size. So we're going to keep them all right around 3. So you can see that randomization doesn't just change the location of them, it changes the size of them randomly as well. So we're pretty good there. I'm pretty good, pretty happy with that. Okay, so let's grab that. Bring it up. Oh, sorry. Do a Control Z there. I'm going to go back up to the top level so I can bring them up as a group. And then I'm going to bring those in over top of my donut. Now, something that I can do at this point, you can see how tightly grouped together they are. I can come back over here and I can work on their positioning. Oh, did I? No, I didn't. They should still be visible here. Oh, we did bake those. That's right. Sorry. But we can increase. Control Z. Get them back where they should be. There we go. How they drop down, I don't know. Okay, let's pull them up where we can see them again. Now, what I want to do is I want to try and spread them out a little bit more. So I'm going to unconstrain and I'm going to play with this positioning a little bit to see if I can get them to, there we go, I can spread them out a little bit that way. See if we can work more on that Y. That's just pushing their location a little bit. Okay, so, and our Z, that'll just change their up and down. Okay, so what we'll do here is, it looks like we have all of them sitting nicely on the icing. We'll do a Control D and bring them over. We're gonna have to like adjust these kind of in a funny way. Just bring them out and over. It'll actually give more of a randomization look to them because of that. And now we got to find that one that's sitting up all by itself there. That one. Bring that over a little bit. There we go. And we're going to change the color of this group to, I think, yellow. So right now we have a couple of different types of sprinkles on top of the donut. Let's click off of it and see what we've got here. Okay, we got a couple of different types of sprinkles. We still have a couple of them that sitting up in the air. So we've got to figure out which one is which. That's the one I wanted. Bring that over. We can actually do all sorts of little adjustments here that make it look very random. Okay, now I have also done just a few other sprinkles. So these here, we're going to make sure we get these correct. So these are yellow. The yellow spheres. And these were the red spheres. Again, I like to make sure we name everything. And I'll just condense those a little bit. Now, I've done some other sprinkles prior to these. So I'm going to go ahead and turn those on. You can see some of them I left at bigger sizes. Oh, there's the plate. Don't want to see that yet. So there's a bunch of sprinkles right there. I think those red ones we may have to move back onto the donut a little bit. So still have to play with some of these, but right now I think I'm pretty happy with all of the sprinkles that I have on my donut. And I've gone through the steps for you a couple of different ways. We added some sprinkles, we added some spheres. We could really make some long looking pieces to go to that, but I think this is probably enough at this point. So that's our basic sprinkle look. The next video I'm going to do for you guys is the plate that we're going to put this on. So that's it for now, and I'll see you guys in the next video.